You can't keep stepping off the phones, Maya. You understand that, right? It's one interview. Keith didn't blink. An interview is you telling me you don't want this job? I want a better job. He leaned back in his chair like he owned the air between us. Not while you're on my floor. O, sen, APPP. I didn't answer. I just felt my stomach tighten, like my body was bracing before my brain caught up. The email had come in at 6:12 a.m. Right as the apartment heater clicked and died again. I was standing in the kitchen in socks that didn't match, warming a bottle in a mug of hot tap water because the microwave was broken, and I kept telling myself I'd fix it this weekend. The subject line glowed on my phone screen like it was too bright for that hour. We'd love to invite you to interview in person. My thumb hovered over it like touching it might make it disappear. My baby, my whole reason for being awake at 6:12, made a small sound from the pack-and-play in the living room. The kind of half-cry, half-whimper that meant she wasn't fully up yet, but she was checking if I was still here. I'm here, I whispered, even though she couldn't understand words. She understood the sound. I took 2 steps, bent down, and watched her blink at the ceiling fan that didn't spin anymore. Her hair stuck up in the back from sleep. Her cheeks were warm. I had 10 minutes before I needed to get her dressed, 20 before we had to leave for daycare, and 45 before my shift started at the call center. 45 minutes in which I could pretend I wasn't one missed payment away from losing our spot. The email had a time. 10:30 a.m. In person, downtown. Not a phone interview. Not a, we'll get back to you. A real interview, the kind people in movies showed up to in crisp blazers, with coffee they didn't spill, with cars that started the first time. I didn't have a car that started the first time. I had a bus pass with 3 rides left until payday. I opened my notes app and did math like my life depended on it. Because it did. Daycare drop-off at 7:35, bus route 14 to the call center, clock in by 8 or Keith would write me up again. We were already on probation, me and my attendants. The last time the baby had a fever, I'd missed a shift and Keith had stared at me like I was personally attacking his metrics. If I left at 10 for the interview, I'd miss at least 2 hours. That was 2 hours of adherence lost. 2 hours Keith would not forgive. I packed the diaper bag while the bottle cooled. 2 diapers, wipes, the small tube of diaper cream that was nearly empty, an extra onesie. I shook the diaper bag like that would create an extra diaper. It didn't. I stared at the stack of folded laundry on the couch, the baby's clothes on top, my clothes underneath, and I picked the least wrinkled shirt I owned. Not my favorite shirt. My interview shirt. It wasn't actually an interview shirt. So, it was a black button-up I'd gotten from a thrift store because it didn't have stains, and it made me look like I belonged somewhere that wasn't a headset and a script. By the time we were outside, the February air slapped my face awake. The sky was that flat gray that made everything look cheaper. The stroller wheels caught on cracked sidewalk, and I lifted it like I had more patience than I did. At daycare, the front desk smelled like disinfectant and old Cheerios. The woman behind the counter smiled at my baby and not at me. That was normal. Babies made people soften. Mothers came with paperwork. "Morning, Maya," she said, scanning the screen. "We'll need the updated authorization for next month." My throat went dry. Updated? She pointed to a printed notice taped to the wall, half covered by a flyer for a bake sale. Daycare rates increasing, effective March 1. I read it twice like the words might change. My mind jumped straight to rent, to the utility bill sitting unopened on my kitchen counter, to the savings jar labeled stability that held $23 and some loose change. I'll figure it out," I said. "You'll want to, honey," she replied, still smiling, like she was talking about a birthday party. "Wait lists are long." I kissed my baby's forehead and handed her over, and she didn't cry. She didn't even look back. That should have felt like freedom. It felt like losing something. The bus was late. Of course it was late. I stood with my hands in my pockets, rocking on my heels, watching my breath fog in front of my face. 2 men argued softly about sports. A woman in scrubs stared at her phone like it owed her money. Everyone looked tired in the same way, like we all shared one big invisible shift. When I finally got to the call center, the fluorescent lights hit me like a headache. Rows of cubicles, the hum of voices, the cheap carpet that never looked clean. I logged in, put on my headset, and smiled into my screen like the customers could see it. Thank you for calling. My name is Maya. How can I help you today? By 9:15, my inbox was full of angry emails from customers and one unread message from the hiring coordinator. Please confirm attendance. Bring a photo ID. I stared at that line. Bring a photo ID. I had it in my wallet, next to a card I never used because it stayed maxed out, next to a picture of my baby taken at the mall when the photographer had offered a free print, and I'd said yes because free was my favorite price. I glanced at the break schedule posted on the wall. My breaks were 10:45 and 1:30. The interview was 10:30. I raised my hand at the end of a call and waited while Keith walked by without looking. Finally, he stopped, annoyed. What? He said, like I'd interrupted something important, like I wasn't his job. I need to talk to you for a minute, I said. My voice came out calm. My chest didn't feel calm. He pointed at the small conference room. 2 minutes. Inside, it was colder. The table was bare except for a stack of coaching forms. Keith didn't sit. He stood like he had somewhere better to be. I have an interview today, I said. At 10:30. I'm asking to use PTO for 2 hours. He let out a short laugh. You're on probation. I have accrued time. You're on probation, he repeated, slower, like I was the one who didn't understand. That means your job is on thin ice. You don't leave the floor when you feel like it. I'm not leaving when I feel like it, I said. I'm leaving because I earned the time and because this is important. Keith leaned his hands on the table. You should be focused on this job. You should be grateful you have it. I could have said a lot right then. I could have told him I was grateful for a paycheck, but not for being treated like I didn't deserve air. I could have told him I had a baby and daycare and rent and a heater that didn't work. I could have made my life sound like a speech. I didn't. I pulled my phone out and opened the email. It's a job in my field, I said, and I heard the slight shake at the end of my sentence. It's what I studied for. Keith's eyes flicked to the screen. Not long enough to read, just long enough to confirm it wasn't a lie. You take that interview, he said, and you're telling me you're not committed here. You understand what that means. It wasn't a question. It was a warning dressed up like policy. My hands were cold, even in that room. I thought about the daycare notice. I thought about my baby's warm forehead. I thought about the savings jar with $23. I took a breath and did something I wasn't used to doing. Can you put that in writing? I asked. Keith's eyebrows went up. Excuse me? If you're denying accrued time, I said, careful. I need it in writing. Or I can speak to HR about accommodations. Said differently 1 to be plus 7 dies. For a second there was silence. Not peaceful silence. The kind that meant someone was deciding if you were worth the effort to crush. Keith stared at me. I stared back. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. I kept my face still anyway. I'd learned that in the last year if you looked scared, people got comfortable being cruel. He exhaled through his nose. 2 hours, he said finally. Unpaid. And you better not be late coming back. Unpaid meant less groceries. Unpaid meant no cushion. But it also meant the door didn't close. Okay, I said. He waved a hand like he was dismissing a fly. Go. And Maya, don't make me regret it. Back at my desk, I didn't celebrate. I didn't text anyone yet. I opened the hiring email and typed with stiff fingers. Thank you. I can confirm 10:30 a.m. today. I will be there. I hit send, then stared at my screen until the letters stopped swimming. At 9:58, I clocked out and walked fast, keeping my badge visible like that mattered. Outside, the air felt even colder. I checked the bus app. The next bus was in 12 minutes. 12 minutes was forever when your whole future was scheduled for 10:30. I started walking, fast at first, then faster. My shoes hit the sidewalk hard, my lungs burned. The city noise rose around me, cars, a siren somewhere far off, the rattle of a shopping cart. Halfway down the block, my phone buzzed. Daycare. My stomach dropped. I answered, breathless. Hi, this is Maya. Hey, the daycare worker said, sounding casual. Too casual. Just letting you know, we sent home a note about the rate increase. Starting March 1st, it'll be an extra 120 a week. 120 a week. My legs kept moving, but my mind froze. 120 a week was groceries. It was my phone bill. It was the difference between staying afloat and sinking quietly. I got the notice, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Okay, honey, she replied. Just don't wait too long. We have families asking. I hung up and kept walking, my chest tight. The interview was still ahead of me, but the ground under it shifted, like I was climbing stairs that someone kept rebuilding while I was mid-step. I didn't know if I could afford success. That sounded ridiculous, but it was true. A better job meant a chance. It also meant new problems, new schedules, new childcare. New ways to fail, new ways to fail, new ways to fail, new ways to fail. I looked at the time. 10, 14. I pulled out my phone and opened my contacts. My thumb hovered over Linda's name, the woman who wasn't perfect, who sometimes talked too sharp, who loved my baby like she belonged to her. I didn't call yet. Pride held my hand for half a second. Then I thought of the daycare woman saying wait lists are long. I hit dial. Linda answered on the second ring. Maya, you okay? I need a favor, I said, and my voice cracked just enough to make me hate myself. There was a pause. Then, softer. Tell me what you need. The city blurred as I walked. My future was 10 blocks away. My baby was across town. My heart felt split in half and still moving. I didn't know how we would survive the next month. I only knew I was going to that interview. Do you think Maya should tell Linda everything about the daycare increase right now, or keep it to herself until after the interview? How bad is it? Linda asked. It's not bad. I lied, because lying was faster than breaking down. Renee's voice came through the speaker like she'd been waiting beside Linda. Tell the truth, Maya. I can't lose our daycare spot, I said. Linda went quiet for 1 second. Then you're not losing it. You hear me? Keith's warning echoed in my head. Don't be late coming back. Renee cut in steady. Where are you right now? Walking. To the interview. Good, Linda said. Keep walking. We'll handle the rest. I didn't know what handle meant. I just knew I didn't have time to ask. The city air tasted like exhaust and cold metal. My fingers were numb around my phone, but I didn't put it away until I heard Linda say, text me the address. Now, I stopped at a crosswalk and typed with shaking thumbs. The building name, the suite number, the street. I added the interview time like it was a countdown to something that could save us. Linda replied in all caps. Go? I'm on it. Clues. Linda forget 'em are. I'm on it. I wanted to feel relief. Instead, I felt guilt, heavy and familiar. Like every time I accepted help, I was admitting I didn't have it together. Like every time someone stepped in, it meant I'd failed as a mother. But my feet didn't slow. My body had learned what my pride hadn't. Survival wasn't a solo sport. The interview itself was a blur of elevator dings and carpeted hallways that smelled like lemon cleaner. I sat in a lobby with a row of framed photos of smiling employees. Their teeth looked expensive. I kept my hands folded in my lap so no one would see them shake. When the interviewer finally called my name, I stood so fast my chair scraped loud. I forced a small smile anyway. In the room, the hiring manager, Sandra, mid-40s, neat hair, calm eyes, asked questions that didn't feel like traps. She asked about my coursework, my internship hours, the software I'd learned. She asked how I handled stress. I didn't tell her about Keith. I didn't tell her about the heater or the savings jar or the daycare rate increase. I talked about problem solving, about staying organized, about showing up, because that was what people wanted to hear. Not that I was tired, not that I was scared, just that I could do the work. At the end, Sandra nodded and said, I like your attitude. We'll be in touch soon. Soon was a word that could mean tomorrow or never. I thanked her, shook her hand, and walked out with my shoulders up like armor. Outside, my phone buzzed again. Not Sandra. Daycare. My heart jumped anyway. It was a text from Linda this time. Call me when you can. I checked the time. 11:37. If I didn't get back to the call center by 12, Keith would have my head. The bus app showed delays again. I started walking, faster than before, like speed could erase consequences. On the bus, I sat near the back and stared out the window at people moving through their own problems. Kids with backpacks, a man carrying 2 grocery bags like he didn't trust the handles, a woman pushing a cart full of recyclables. Everyone had a reason to keep going. Mine was waiting at daycare with a drool-soaked bib and a little laugh that came out when I made a dumb face. I got to the call center at 11:58 and swiped my badge like it was a prayer. Keith glanced over from his station, eyes sharp, and looked away without a word. That was his version of mercy. I logged in, put the headset on, and took calls like nothing had happened. Thank you for calling. My name is Maya. How can I help you today? But my mind kept drifting to Linda's text. Call me when you can. It sounded urgent. It sounded like the kind of thing you didn't ignore. At 1:30, my second break finally hit. I grabbed my phone and went outside, where the cold air felt cleaner than the stale office. I called Linda. She picked up immediately. You? Back on the floor? Yes, I said. What's going on? Linda didn't waste time. I talked to your daycare. I asked for the director, not the front desk. My stomach tightened. Linda, don't Linda me, she snapped, then softened. Listen. Renee's voice came through again, quieter this time, like she was sitting at the same kitchen table while Linda paced. We need a plan that doesn't depend on you panicking every month. I'm not panicking, I said automatically. Linda barked a laugh. Girl, you called me on the sidewalk like you were about to fall apart. End quote. I looked down at my hands. The skin around my nails was chewed raw. Okay, I admitted. I'm panicking. Good, Renee said. Now we can work. Linda kept talking. They want the new rate starting March 1st. If you miss it, they can give your spot away. That's what the front desk girl meant. It's messed up, but it's real. My chest went tight. I can't pay an extra $120 a week. I know, Linda said, and for once she didn't sound angry. She sounded like a person who'd been broke before. So we're not relying on just you. We? I repeated. Renee cleared her throat. Linda and I sat down. We wrote it out. I pictured them at Linda's small kitchen table, the one with the scratches in the wood from years of cutting vegetables directly on it. I pictured Renee's careful handwriting, the way she underlined things when she wanted them to feel solid. I pictured Linda's impatience, tapping a pen like the world should hurry up and get fair. What did you do? I asked. Linda answered like she was proud and annoyed at the same time. We made a schedule. We made a schedule. A schedule? My voice sounded small. Childcare, Renee said. Backup childcare. I leaned against the building wall and tried to breathe. I don't have anyone else. You do now, Linda said, like it was obvious. Renee continued. Practical. I can take her 2 evenings a week after your shift. That gives you room to pick up overtime if you need it, or take classes if you decide to. Renee, you're back, I started. Is my back? She cut in. Not harsh, just firm. I know what I can do. Linda jumped in. And I can do mornings on Wednesdays, at least until your schedule changes. I can drop her off. That means if daycare ever gets weird with you, you've got a buffer. My throat burned. I don't want you guys to. To what? Linda said. Care? Help? Be in your life? Stop acting like you're the only one allowed to carry anything. I swallowed hard. The wind stung my eyes. Or maybe it wasn't the wind. Renee's voice softened. Maya, you're not asking for rescue. You're building stability. There's a difference. Stability. The word landed in my chest like something warm. Like the opposite of panic. Linda wasn't done. Also, I found out something. They have a scholarship fund at the daycare. It's not advertised, because of course it's not. You have to request an application through the director. My heart jumped. They do? They do, Linda said, satisfied. And guess what? You qualify based on income. You'll need proof of pay stubs, rent, utilities, The whole sad scrapbook of being broke. I almost laughed, but it came out like a shaky exhale. I can get that, Renee added, and we'll help you fill it out. Tonight, tonight, I pictured myself after work, exhausted, baby asleep, paperwork spread across Linda's table. Not fun, not cute, but possible. I glanced at the call center windows behind me. Rows of people trapped inside, tethered to headsets, counting minutes until their next break. Keith prowling like a hall monitor. The air in there always felt like a reminder. You can survive, but you can't breathe. My break timer buzzed. I had 1 minute left. I had the interview, I said quickly. I don't know if I got it, Linda scoffed. Of course you got it. I don't know, I repeated. She said they'd be in touch. Renee said, either way, you did it. You showed up. Linda's voice dropped. Serious. And you're gonna keep showing up, but you're not doing it alone anymore. You hear me? I pressed my phone harder to my ear. Yeah, I whispered. I hear you. When I went back inside, the lights felt the same. The noise felt the same. The carpet still smelled like old coffee. But something in me had shifted. Not joy. Not relief. Something steadier. I took calls, one after another, and in between I started a list in my notes app. Daycare scholarship application, documents needed, backup childcare schedule, interview follow-up email. For the first time in a long time, my future looked like a list I could actually finish. At the end of my shift, I rode the bus to daycare with my shoulders aching and my brain still buzzing. My baby squealed when she saw me and reached out with both arms like I was the best part of her day. I held her tight, breathing in that warm, clean smell of baby shampoo and crackers. Outside, the sky was already dark. Streetlights flickered on. The wind cut through my coat. I adjusted her on my hip and whispered, "We're gonna be okay." I didn't say it like a promise to the universe. I said it like a plan. Because tonight, there would be paperwork on Linda's table. Renee would make soup. Linda would complain about the director's tone. I would fill out boxes with numbers that made me feel exposed. My baby would fall asleep on my shoulder, heavy and trusting. And somewhere in between all of it, I would remember that being a mother didn't mean being alone. I didn't know if the new job would happen, but I knew we were building something that could hold us. If you're reading this, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, what city or country you're in. Every single comment and share is a bridge that helps this channel grow stronger and better, one story at a time. You're wearing that to a real interview? Linda said. And I could hear the judgment before I even stepped inside. It's clean, I shot back. Renee didn't look up from the pot on the stove. Clean is not the same as ready. I don't have ready, I said, shifting my baby higher on my hip. Linda's eyes swept me head to toe. Then we borrow it. Askin says it, end around. I'm not asking you to buy me clothes, I said fast. Linda scoffed. Good, because I'm not offering. We're going to the thrift store. I should have been relieved we had a plan. Instead, my first feeling was embarrassment, like the fact that my life required a thrift store mission meant I didn't deserve the word professional, like someone could smell struggle on my coat. Linda's kitchen was warm and cramped, the kind of warm that came from a working oven and a pot that never stopped simmering. Renee had soup going, something cheap and hearty, carrots, beans, whatever was on sale. My baby sat in her bouncer near the table, kicking her feet like the world was a game and not a math problem. On the table, the daycare scholarship paperwork was spread out in messy piles. Pay stubs, rent receipt, utility bills. A printed schedule Renee had written out in neat block letters. Mon plus THU, Renee evenings. Wed Linda drop-off. Backup. Tasha, if needed. Renee slid a bowl of soup toward me. Eat. I'm fine, I said automatically, reaching for a pen instead. Linda slapped my wrist lightly. Don't start. Eat. Then write. I took 2 spoonfuls because it was easier than arguing. The soup was hot enough to hurt my tongue, and somehow that made me feel more awake. We worked through the forms in silence for a while. My baby fussed, then calmed when Renee hummed under her breath. Linda muttered about how daycare made everything hard on purpose. I wrote numbers into boxes until my hand cramped. Then Linda tapped the side of her mug. Now, she said. Interview close. I froze. I already did the interview. The next one, Linda corrected, or the follow-up, or the first day, or whatever comes after. You think you can walk into a new place wearing the same tired black shirt and hope the universe respects you? Renee glanced up. Linda, what? It matters, Linda snapped. It shouldn't, but it does. I looked down at my shirt, the black button-up I'd once convinced myself was good enough. It was clean, yes, but the collar had a slight bend that never sat right. The buttons were cheap plastic. The fabric clung to my body in a way that reminded me I'd had a baby. And my body had changed whether I liked it or not. I don't have money, I said quietly. Renee wiped her hands on a towel and came to sit beside me. Thrift doesn't mean expensive, she said. It means effort. Effort. That word always sounded like something people with stable lives said. Like effort was a choice, not a daily requirement. But Renee wasn't saying it like a lecture. She said it like a fact, like she'd lived it. Linda stood and grabbed her keys. We go now. Before you talk yourself out of it, I glanced at my baby. What about, I'll stay, Renee said immediately. She's fed. She's safe. Go. My chest tightened. Renee, you already. Renee cut me off with a look. Not angry, just firm. Maya, go. So I went. Outside, the wind hit hard, and my cheeks stung as Linda marched toward her old sedan like it had somewhere to be. The car started on the second try. Linda smacked the steering wheel like that was a normal conversation between her and the vehicle. You okay? She asked, not looking at me. I'm fine. I lied again. Linda snorted. Stop saying that. You're not fine. You're doing it anyway. That's different. We pulled into a strip mall with a thrift store wedged between a discount pharmacy and a payday loan place. The sign flickered like it was tired too. Inside, the air smelled like dust and fabric softener. A bell dinged when we entered, and an employee with purple hair nodded like she'd seen 100 women like me. Tired eyes, cheap shoes, trying to look like life wasn't squeezing them. Linda grabbed a cart. Blazer, she said, like she was calling a target in a video game. Neutral color. Something that fits your shoulders. I don't even know my size, I muttered. Linda looked at me sharply. Then we try things on. That's what the fitting room is for. And a vacuum. I followed her past racks of sweaters and jeans, past a row of prom dresses that looked like ghosts of someone else's happiness. We found the blazers section, mostly old and boxy, and made for bodies that didn't move like mine. I pulled one off the rack, gray with shoulder pads that made me look like I was dressed for a job in 1993. I held it up. Linda grimaced. No. I tried a navy one. Too small, the sleeves tight around my arms. Then a black one that looked promising until I saw the stain on the lapel. This is stupid, I whispered, feeling heat rise in my face. It's just clothes. Linda pushed another hanger into my hands. It's not just clothes, she said low. It's how you walk into a room that's been closed to you and act like you belong there. Because you do. I stared at the blazer. It was simple, dark green, worn but clean. The fabric was heavy enough to hold shape. How much is it? I asked. Linda checked the tag. $14. $14 might as well have been 100, the way my brain kept track of money. 14 was bus rides. 14 was wipes. 14 was half a copay if the baby got sick again. I held it tighter anyway. In the fitting room, the fluorescent light was brutal. I slipped the blazer on over my shirt and turned toward the mirror. For a second, I didn't recognize myself. Not because I looked fancy. I didn't. My hair was still pulled back in a simple bun. My face still had that tired softness under the eyes. But the blazer changed my outline. It made my shoulders look straighter. It made me look like someone who had a reason to be in an office and not just a headset. I swallowed. My throat felt thick. Linda opened the curtain a crack. Let me see. I stepped out and Linda's expression shifted just slightly. Not a smile, not a compliment. Something like approval she didn't want to admit. That, she said, nodding. That's you. Showing up. I looked at the tag again. $14. I can't, I started. Linda cut me off. How much is in your wallet? I hesitated. 22. And you still have food at home, she said. Renee made soup. You have diapers. You have bus fare until Friday. Linda's voice hardened. Maya, stop acting like you don't deserve $14. I stared at the blazer. My hands shook a little. It wasn't about the blazer. It was about what it represented. Spending money on myself when every part of me was trained to spend only on the baby, only on survival. My baby didn't need a blazer. But my baby needed a mother who could get out. I walked to the register before I could change my mind. The cashier rang it up. $14.87 with tax. I slid my card through, praying it wouldn't decline. It didn't. The receipt printed with a small whirring sound, like confirmation that this was real. Outside, the wind felt sharper, but I held the bag like it was something fragile. In the car, Linda didn't speak for a minute. Then she said, "Now you follow up." What? The interview, Linda said. You send a thank you email. You don't wait for them to remember you. You remind them. I blinked. People do that? People who get hired do, Linda said. Back at Linda's place, Renee had my baby on her hip, bouncing her gently while stirring the soup again. My baby squealed when she saw me and reached for my hair like she always did, grabbing without apology. I kissed her cheek and inhaled that baby smell that made my chest loosen. You good? I asked her, like she could answer. She was an angel, Renee said, and then added, for 5 minutes at a time. Quote. Linda pointed at the kitchen table. Laptop? She said. I sat down, pulled my cheap laptop closer, and opened my email. My fingers hovered over the keys, suddenly scared again. Not scared of Keith. Not scared of daycare. Scared of wanting something. Renee sat across from me. Quiet support. Linda stood behind me like a guard dog. I typed, Hi Sandra, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I appreciated learning more about the role and the team. I'm excited about the possibility of contributing, and I'm confident my skills in software, tools, and specific tasks would be a strong fit. Please let me know if you need anything else from me. Thank you again. Maya. Linda leaned in. Add one line. Make it personal. I frowned. Like what? Like you paid attention, Linda said. I read back through my memory. Sandra's calm voice. The way she'd talked about the department being short-staffed, but trying to improve workflow. The way she'd mentioned training new hires with patience. I added a line. I especially appreciated what you shared about the team's focus on improving workflow and supporting new hires during training. Renee nodded once. That's good. My finger hovered over send. I thought about the $14 I just spent. I thought about Renee's back. I thought about Linda calling the daycare director like she had nothing to lose. Then I hit send. The email whooshed away. A tiny sound. A big risk. Linda exhaled like she'd been holding her breath too. There, she said. Now we wait. Renee reached across the table and slid my bowl closer. Eat, she reminded me again. I ate while my baby babbled to herself in the bouncer, kicking her feet like she was drumming out a rhythm. The room felt warm. Not perfect, not safe forever, but warm enough for one night. Later, when I put my baby to sleep in the small room I rented at Linda's place, I stood there for a minute and watched her chest rise and fall. The world outside still had bills and wait lists and managers like Keith. But in here, in the soft hum of the heater, there was a quiet truth I couldn't ignore. I had people. I had a plan. And I wasn't alone. I didn't know what Sandra would decide, but I knew this. I was showing up like I belonged. If you're feeling this story, hit like and drop a comment should Maya tell Keith she's waiting on an offer, or keep it quiet until the last second. So you're job hunting. I'm interviewing, I said, keeping my voice flat. Keith tilted his head like he was amused. Same thing. I'm allowed to have options. He smiled without warmth. Not on my floor. I used my time, I reminded him. Keith's eyes narrowed. And now you're going to learn what that costs. The next morning, the call center lights felt brighter than usual, like they were trying to expose me. I walked in with my headset bag in one hand and my diaper bag in the other, because I dropped my baby off early to give myself extra buffer time. Linda had done the drop-off, like she promised, and I'd stood on the sidewalk afterward, staring at the daycare door like it was a bank vault. You don't realize how fragile your life is until you're handing your child to someone else so you can earn money to keep handing your child to someone else. At my desk, I logged in and forced my face into customer service neutral. The computer loaded slow as usual. The system always lagged in the mornings, like it didn't want to work either. The first call of the day was a man yelling about a late fee he swore wasn't his fault. I listened, apologized, typed notes, offered the same scripted resolution I'd offered 100 times. When the call ended, my shoulders were already tight. I checked my email between calls the way people check weather, hoping for good news, bracing for bad. Nothing from Sandra, nothing from the hiring coordinator, just internal messages about adherence improvement and smiling through the phone. End quote. Then a calendar invite popped up. Coaching session, 9:45 a.m., conference room, B, organizer. Keith, no description, no agenda. Just my name and that cold block of time. My stomach dropped, but my hand stayed steady on the keyboard. I couldn't afford to look shaken. Not here, not on this floor. At 9:44, I walked to conference room B. The hallway smelled like burnt coffee and cheap air freshener. My badge tapped against my chest with each step, like it was counting down. Keith was already inside, sitting at the table with a folder in front of him. The folder wasn't new. It looked thick, like it had history. He didn't tell me to sit. He didn't say, "Good morning." He just opened the folder and slid a sheet of paper across the table. "Your metrics," he said. I glanced down. Numbers, percentages, call handling time, after call work, adherence. The red highlights stood out like wounds. "These are within target," I said carefully, "except for adherence, which is your problem." Keith cut in. "Because you're not committed." I looked up. "I missed 2 hours yesterday." "Approved. Unpaid," he corrected, tapping the paper. "Unpaid and unprotected. You chose to step away. That affects team performance." "It was a scheduled interview," I said. And even saying the word interview out loud in that room felt like defiance. Keith leaned back, folding his arms. "You think you're special?" My throat tightened. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say I was just trying, just surviving, just doing what people told me I was supposed to do, work hard, be responsible, move up. But Keith wasn't asking because he wanted an answer. He was asking because he wanted me smaller. "I think I'm qualified," I said instead. His eyes flicked, sharp. "Qualified for what? To leave this job the moment something shinier comes along?" I forced myself to breathe slow. Linda's voice echoed in my head from last night. "Don't argue with feelings. Ask for policies. Make them show their hands." I kept my tone calm. "If there's a policy about using accrued time during probation, I'd like to review it." Keith stared at me like I'd spoken another language. "Probation means we're watching you," he said. "It means you're one incident away from termination." "I understand," I said. "I'd still like to review the policy. In writing." "So," Keith's jaw tightened. "You want everything in writing now?" "Yes," I said. "Simple as that." He leaned forward, elbows on the table, lowering his voice like this was confidential. "Maya, I can make this easy or hard." My hands went cold. I felt it in my fingertips. I pictured my baby's face when she woke up this morning, hair sticking up, eyes blinking slow, trusting me like I'd never fail her. I couldn't afford hard. "I'm trying to make it easy," I said. "I'm doing my job. My metrics are in range. My adherence issues are tied to childcare, which I've been addressing." Keith laughed once. "Childcare. Always a story." "It's not a story," I said, and for the first time, heat crept into my voice. "It's my life." He held up a hand as if to stop me from becoming a person. "Let's be clear. If you keep leaving the floor, you'll be written up. If you get written up again, you're done. This is a business." I swallowed. "Then I need to know what qualifies as leaving the floor. Breaks? Bathroom? Pumping accommodations? Because those are protected. Keith's eyes narrowed further. Are you threatening me with HR? I'm asking for clarity, I corrected, keeping my voice steady, even as my heart hammered. There was a long beat of silence. The hum of the call center seeped through the walls like static. Keith looked at me like he was deciding whether I was worth the trouble. Finally, he slid another paper forward. Sign this, he said. I looked down. A coaching acknowledgement form. It listed attendance concerns and commitment and failure to prioritize job responsibilities. It didn't mention yesterday being approved. It didn't mention that I'd asked for unpaid time and returned before noon. It didn't mention facts. It mentioned feelings. I can't sign this as written, I said quietly. Keith's eyes flashed. Excuse me? It's inaccurate, I said. It says I failed to prioritize, but I returned on time and my performance is in range. If you want me to acknowledge the conversation, I can, but I won't sign something that implies misconduct. Keith's voice rose. You don't get to rewrite my documentation. I kept my hands flat on the table so he couldn't see them tremble. Then I'd like to add a note, I said, that the time off was approved and unpaid, and that I returned before the deadline. Keith stared at me. Then he leaned closer, voice low again. You're playing a dangerous game. I have an OSON. I thought of Renee's calm voice. We don't panic. We plan. I thought of Linda's bluntness. Stop acting like you don't deserve $14. I thought of the scholarship application sitting on the kitchen table with my pay stubs clipped neatly like proof of struggle. I wasn't playing a game. I was protecting the only thing I had, a path forward. I'm not playing, I said. I'm documenting. Keith's face hardened. He snatched the paper back. Fine, he said. Don't sign. We'll do it another way. My stomach sank. Another way meant escalation. Another way meant he could frame me as difficult. Another way meant he could make my life miserable until I quit. He stood, opened the door, and pointed toward my desk. Get back on the phones. I walked out with my chin up, even though my legs felt shaky. The call center noise hit me again, loud and relentless. I sat down, put on my headset, and clicked available. The next customer screamed at me about a bill. I apologized. I typed. I breathed. Between calls, I opened a blank email and started typing a message to HR. Not a threat, not an emotional dump, just facts. Today at 9:45 a.m., I attended a coaching meeting with my supervisor regarding adherence. I requested a copy of the policy related to accrued time usage during probation and clarification on expectations. I was presented with a coaching acknowledgement that did not reflect that my time off on date was approved and unpaid. I requested to add a note for accuracy. I paused, finger hovering over send. If I sent this, Keith would know. Keith would make it personal. The call center was small like that. Rumors moved faster than paychecks. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Linda. Did he pull you in a room again? My throat tightened. I didn't know how she always knew. Maybe she recognized patterns because she'd lived them. Maybe she could hear the fear in my silence. I typed back with stiff fingers. Yes, I'm okay. I didn't add more. Pride still had its claws in me, but my body felt like it had been holding its breath for hours. At lunch, I sat in my carless life and ate a peanut butter sandwich at my desk because I didn't want to waste time walking to the break room. The smell of microwave noodles made my stomach turn. I opened my email again. Still nothing from Sandra. I checked the daycare app. My baby had napped. She'd eaten. She'd smiled for a photo. I stared at that tiny grin until my chest softened. Whatever Keith wanted, whatever power he thought he had, he couldn't touch that. That afternoon, Keith walked behind my cubicle twice. The first time, he didn't say anything. The second time, he paused. Remember, he said quietly, we're watching. I didn't turn around. I kept my voice professional for the customer on the line, but my free hand curled into a fist under the desk. After my shift, I stepped outside into the cold air and finally let myself breathe. My shoulders ached like I'd been carrying something heavier than a headset all day. I started walking toward the bus stop, then stopped. I pulled out my phone and looked at the HR email draft again. The cursor blinked like it was waiting for me to choose a version of my life. I wasn't trying to start a war. I was trying to keep my future from being taken quietly. I didn't know what Sandra would decide, but I knew what I couldn't allow anymore. If you're still with me, don't just watch in silence, hit like. Share this story with someone who needs it, and tell me in the comments. Should Maya send that HR email tonight or wait until she has the job offer in hand? We'd like to offer you the position, the voice said. I'm sorry, what? I blinked hard, like my ears were glitching. You heard me, Sandra said, calm, almost smiling through the phone. We want you to start Monday. It's... My grip tightened on the laundromat basket. Monday? As in this Monday? Yes, she replied. Can you do it? Linda's voice exploded in my head like she was standing right beside me. Say yes. I swallowed. Yes, I can. The laundromat smelled like warm detergent and wet cotton, the kind of smell that clung to your hoodie even after you left. The machines rumbled in the background like distant thunder. I was standing between two rows of washers, balancing my phone against my cheek with one shoulder, my free hand clutching a roll of quarters like it was the last cash I had, because it basically was. On the bench beside me, my baby kicked her feet in her car seat, babbling at the bright, spinning circles in the machine door like it was the most magical thing she'd ever seen. She didn't know I had just been handed a new life in the middle of folding towels. Sandra kept talking, businesslike. I'm going to email the offer letter today. You'll also get a background check link from our vendor. We'll need the usual documents for onboarding ID, social security card, direct deposit information. HR will send you a checklist. Okay, I said, but my brain was still stuck on Monday. Monday was 3 days away. Monday was a cliff. And Maya, Sandra added, I want to be honest. Training is structured. You'll need to be on time every day. It's not flexible. My heart squeezed. On time. Every day. Daycare drop-off. Bus schedule. A baby who didn't care about corporate structure. I can do that, I said anyway, because I needed it to be true. Sandra's tone softened just a little. Good. I'm excited to have you on the team. When the call ended, I stood there for a second, like the floor might tilt. My hands were shaking so hard the quarters clinked against each other. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared at the washer window, watching my baby's tiny socks tumble over and over, and I whispered, We did it. My baby answered with a happy squeal, like she agreed. Then reality came, rushing in behind the joy, fast and cold. Monday meant I had to quit the call center. Monday meant I had to survive the gap between paychecks. Monday meant I needed childcare locked down like a safe. Monday meant Keith could still mess with me if I gave him any opening. My phone buzzed again. Email notification. Offer letter. Attached. My throat tightened. I opened it with trembling fingers. Base pay. Higher than my current hourly. Benefits. Health insurance after a waiting period. Schedule. Monday, Friday, training 9-5. Start date. This Monday. At the bottom, a line that made my stomach drop. Employment contingent upon successful completion of background check and verification of eligibility to work. Contingent? Background check. I'd never had anything serious, no arrests, no criminal record, but background check still hit like a threat. Like the world always had a way to find something to disqualify you when you finally tried to stand up. My baby fussed, and I realized I'd been holding my breath. I popped her bottle in her mouth, bouncing the car seat gently with my foot while I reread the offer letter like it might change if I stared long enough. It didn't. I needed to call someone. Not a friend who would just squeal and post about it. Someone who would immediately pivot from celebration to logistics. Linda. I hit dial. She answered on the first ring. You got news? No. I laughed once, breathless. I got it. There was a split second of silence, then Linda shouted so loud I pulled the phone away from my ear. Yes, I knew it. I knew it. If you could discerning fiver the general form. My baby startled and started to cry, and I bounced her harder, whispering, It's okay. It's okay. While Linda kept yelling like we just won the lottery. I start Monday, I said when she finally took a breath. Linda's voice sharpened. Monday. Okay. That's soon. Yeah, I said, and the joy in my chest shifted into nervous pressure. They said training isn't flexible. Then we make life flexible, Linda replied instantly. Where are you? Laundromat, I said, glancing around at the fluorescent lights and tired faces. I'm doing laundry. Linda snorted. Of course you are. Okay, listen. We need a childcare plan that doesn't collapse if the bus is late. I know. And you need to quit that call center smart, Linda continued. Not emotional, not dramatic. You hand them notice. You document everything. You don't give Keith a chance to write a story about you. My stomach tightened at the mention of Keith. He already pulled me into coaching again. I knew it, Linda said, like she was checking off a box. Did you send HR the email? No, I admitted. Linda exhaled hard. Okay, we'll decide tonight. But first, background check. What do you need? I have to click the link, I said, scrolling. They'll ask for addresses, employment history. Do it tonight, Linda said. Not tomorrow. Tonight. You don't leave doors open for stress. I stared at the offer letter line again. Contingent upon. My voice got smaller. What if something goes wrong? Linda didn't hesitate. Then we handle it. But we're not borrowing trouble before it arrives. Renee's voice joined in. She must have been with Linda again, like they'd become a team without even announcing it. Maya, she said gently, go pick up your baby after laundry. Bring the paperwork home. We'll do one step at a time. One step at a time. That was how you survive when your future moved faster than your resources. I hung up and sat on the bench again, my baby calmer now, her bottle half empty. Around me, people loaded clothes into dryers like nothing monumental had happened. A teenage boy carried a bag of uniforms. A woman folded scrubs with tired precision. Everyone was living in the same grind. I just happened to get a crack in the wall today, but cracks could close if you didn't move. On the bus ride to daycare, I kept my phone in my hand the whole time, rereading the offer letter and the checklist email that followed. Every line felt like a test. Bring your I-9 documents. Complete background check within 24 hours. Attend orientation promptly at 8:45 a.m. 24 hours. Quote, 8:45 a.m. promptly. At daycare pickup, my baby launched herself toward me like she'd been waiting all day to remind me what mattered. I hugged her so tight she squeaked. The front desk worker handed me a paper. Don't forget the new rate starts March 1st, she said, sweet as sugar. I nodded, even though my brain wanted to scream. I know. Outside, the wind bit through my coat. My baby's cheeks were pink from the cold. I tucked her under my scarf as best I could and walked toward the bus stop again. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My stomach dropped like it was trained to expect bad news. I answered anyway. Hello? Hi, this is Ethan, the voice said. For a second, I didn't speak. The sound of his name in my ear felt like a door opening to a room I'd locked on purpose. What do you want? I asked, blunt, because I didn't have energy to pretend. Ethan cleared his throat. I heard you're moving up. New job. Congrats. My grip tightened on the stroller handle. Who told you that? People talk, he said. I'm calling because I want to see her. I stared at my baby's face, her eyes wide and curious at the passing cars. She didn't know this voice. She didn't know the way he'd disappeared when everything got hard. She didn't know the nights I'd rocked her alone while my phone stayed silent. She's not a trophy you claim when it's convenient, I said quietly. I'm not trying to start something, Ethan replied fast. I want to be involved. Involved. The word felt cheap coming from him. Text me, I said, because I couldn't handle a full conversation in the cold with my baby shivering. We'll talk another time. Maya, he started. I have to go. I cut in and hung up before he could pull me into anything. My heart pounded hard. Not because I missed him, because I didn't trust timing. I didn't trust that the moment my life got better, old problems wouldn't try to crawl back in. When I got home, Linda was already at the kitchen table with her laptop open and a folder in front of her like she was a manager of my life now. Renee stood by the stove, stirring soup again, because that's what she did when she didn't know how else to help. She fed people. Linda looked up the second I walked in. Tell me everything. I set my baby in the playpen and pulled out my phone. Offer letter, I said, and slid it across. Linda read it fast. Her eyes stopped at the background check line. Renee leaned in. That's normal, she said. Linda nodded but didn't soften. Normal doesn't mean harmless. We do it tonight, and ready. My baby babbled to herself, banging a plastic spoon against the playpen wall like she was making music. I watched her for a second, letting her sound ground me. Then I sat down. Renee placed a bowl of soup in front of me. Eat first, she said. I can eat later, I tried. Renee's eyes held mine. Eat now. You need your brain. So I ate. And while I ate, Linda printed forms, pulled up the background check link, and started listing tasks like she was building a bridge out of thin air. Complete background check tonight. 2. Gather documents. ID, social security card, bank info. 3. Draft resignation email to call center, short and clean. 4. Childcare plan for training week. Drop off, pick up, backups. 5. Decide on HR email to document Keith. I stared at the list, overwhelmed. Not by the work, but by the fact that my life finally had a direction that required planning instead of just reacting. I can't mess this up, I whispered. Linda looked at me hard. Then don't. Renee reached across the table and squeezed my hand gently, her fingers warm and steady. You won't, she said, because you're not doing it alone. I looked toward the playpen. My baby laughed at nothing, pure and bright, like she trusted the world more than I did. And in that moment, the fear shifted. It didn't disappear, but it made room for something else. Pride. Not loud, not flashy, just real. I had a job offer in my inbox. I had 2 women at my table who refused to let me fall. And I had my child, the one who made every hard day worth surviving. I wasn't lucky. I was ready. If you're still watching, hit like, share this story, and tell me in the comments, should Maya send that HR email about Keith tonight before she resigns, or keep her head down and walk out clean? We're still missing one document, the HR woman said, her voice polite like this wasn't my entire life. I uploaded it last night. I said, already standing in the hallway with my coat on. It didn't go through, she replied. Without it, we can't complete your onboarding. It's not go. I start today, I said, trying not to sound like I was begging. I can't lose this. Renee's hand slid under my baby's arms. Give her to me. Linda grabbed her keys off the hook. Go, now. We'll handle the rest. It was still dark outside, the kind of dark that made the streetlights look lonely. My new job wanted me there at 8:45. The bus app had already shown delays. My baby had woken up at 5:20 and refused to go back down, wide-eyed like she'd been waiting for this day more than I had. I hadn't slept much anyway. Not after finishing the background check link, scanning documents with my phone, double-checking my addresses like a mistake could disqualify me from stability. Not after writing my resignation email to the call center in a draft I saved and reread 10 times until it sounded like I had a backbone. Short, clean, no emotion. Effective immediately, I am providing notice of resignation. Thank you for the opportunity. I didn't add what I wanted to add. I didn't mention Keith. I didn't mention the coaching form. I didn't mention the way the lights in that place made me feel smaller. I didn't give them the satisfaction of my story. At 7:12 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered because new jobs came with unknown numbers. Maya, a woman's voice said, this is Angela from HR. Quick question, your social security card upload is unreadable. The system flagged it. My stomach dropped so hard it felt physical. Unreadable? Yes, Angela said. It's blurry. We need a clear copy for the I-9. If we don't receive it, we can't finalize your onboarding this morning. I pressed my baby closer against my chest, her warm body a reminder that panic didn't stop the clock. Can I bring it in person? Might, Angela paused. You can, but we need it before you complete orientation. Orientation. The word sounded like a door closing. I have it, I said. I can bring it. Great, she replied, still calm. Bring a clear photocopy if possible, or the original document. Photocopy? I didn't own a printer. I didn't have a copier. My mind raced through options like a map flipping open. I'll be there, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Renee was already in the kitchen, hair pulled back, moving slow because of her back, but moving anyway. Linda sat at the table with her coffee, like she'd been waiting for the next crisis to walk in. What? Linda asked immediately. I didn't waste time. They say my social security card scan is blurry. They need a clear copy before orientation. Linda's face tightened. Of course they do. Renee reached for my baby without asking, like she decided she was part of the machinery keeping me upright. Give her to me, she said again. You can't run around with her in that weather. I can. No, Renee said. Simple. You need your hands. For Mappet. My baby protested for half a second when I handed her over, then calmed when Renee bounced gently, humming like she always did. It wasn't a big dramatic sacrifice. It was a practical one. Renee taking the weight so I could move. Linda stood so fast her chair scraped. Do you have the card? In my wallet, I said. Get it, Linda snapped, and your ID. I ran to my room, dug through my purse, pulled out the worn Social Security card I'd kept in a plastic sleeve for years. The edges were softened from being handled too often. I stared at it like it was the only proof I existed. I came back to the kitchen and held it up. This. Linda grabbed it and nodded once, sharp. Okay. We need a copier. FedEx office, UPS store, library, anywhere. Renee adjusted my baby on her hip. There's a print shop near the bus station, she said. The one with the red sign. Linda was already grabbing her keys. That one opens at 8. It's 7:20, I said, my voice tight. Linda looked at the clock and then at me. Then we wait outside the door. You're not losing this job because of a stupid scanner. My throat burned. Linda, not today, she cut in. Save your apologies for people who deserve them. I pulled on my blazer, the thrift store blazer that still smelled faintly like someone else's closet, and the fabric made me feel like I was stepping into a version of myself I'd been building for months. I tucked my hair back, checked my face in the hallway mirror. I looked tired, but I looked present. Outside, the cold hit hard. Linda's car started on the second try, and she cursed under her breath like a ritual. We drove through quiet streets, the city still waking up. I watched the dashboard clock like it was a threat. Tiden sicheriefen. Tiden sicherlofen. Tiden wuschefen. At the print shop, the metal gate was still down. The lights inside were off. Linda parked and got out anyway, walking up to the door like she could intimidate time. We can't wait, I said, voice rising. Linda turned toward me. We can't not wait. I stood on the sidewalk, hands shoved into my pockets, breathing fast. My mind tried to sprint ahead. What if they push my start date? What if they rescind the offer? What if the background check still wasn't done? What if? Linda's phone buzzed. She glanced down, then smirked. Renee, she said. What? I asked. She says there's a copier at her workplace, Linda replied, already dialing. She can get a clear copy and bring it to the building. My stomach clenched. Her workplace? She's working today? Linda nodded like it was obvious. Night shift ended at 7. She stayed late. Something cracked in me, anger mixed with love. She shouldn't have to do that. Huh? Linda's eyes flicked to mine. She chose to, because you're not a stranger to her. Actually, I swallowed hard, staring at the print shop door like it might open out of pity. It didn't. Linda put the phone on speaker. Renee's voice came through, slightly breathless, like she was walking. I got the copier, Renee said. I made 2 copies. Clear. I'm on my way. Renee, I started. You didn't have to. I know, she said gently, but I did. Linda looked at the time. 8:03. Okay, Maya. New plan. You take the bus now. I'll meet Renee and get the copies if she doesn't make it in time. My chest tightened. What if she gets stuck in traffic? 1. Then I drive like hell, Linda said, already turning back to the car. I wanted to argue. I wanted to control everything. But I couldn't. The only thing I could control was whether I showed up. So I ran for the bus stop. The bus arrived 5 minutes late. Of course it did. I got on, swiped my pass, and sat near the front, knees bouncing. Every stop felt personal. Every red light felt like sabotage. I checked my phone again. No new messages. No updates. My palms were sweaty even in the cold. At 8:38, I got off 2 blocks from the building and jogged the rest of the way, my blazer flapping open, my breath sharp in my throat. The lobby was bright and clean. The kind of clean that made me feel like dirt didn't belong. At the reception desk, I said my name. The receptionist smiled, handed me a visitor badge, and told me where to wait. The waiting area had soft chairs and a bowl of mints. My old job had a vending machine that ate dollars. Angela from HR appeared at 8:47, clipboard in hand. Maya? I stood so fast my knees popped. Yes. Hi, she smiled. We're ready for you. One thing, we still don't have that document. My stomach dropped again. Harder. It's coming, I said quickly. My family is bringing a clear copy. Angela's smile stayed polite, but her tone tightened. We do need it before we can complete your I-9. Orientation starts at 9. I nodded, throat tight. I understand. I sat back down and stared at the glass doors. Every time they opened, my heart jumped. Baden Wusharfen, Baden Wuscherwufen, Baden Wuschertiefen. At 8:58, the doors swung open, and Linda marched in like she owned the building. Renee was beside her, moving slower, one hand pressed lightly against her lower back, but her face steady. In Renee's hand was a manila envelope like it was sacred. Linda spotted me and lifted the envelope in the air. We got it. People turned. I didn't care. I rushed forward, taking the envelope from Renee's hands like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Renee, I breathed. Thank you. Renee's eyes softened. Go, she said. Finish it. Linda leaned in, voice low and fierce. You don't look back. You hear me? My throat burned. I nodded because if I tried to speak, I'd cry in the lobby of my new job on day 1, and I didn't want my first impression to be broken. Angela took the documents, glanced and nodded. Perfect, she said. This is clear. Thank you. Just like that. The biggest problem in my world became a piece of paper that fit into a folder. I followed Angela down a hallway that smelled like fresh paint and coffee that didn't come from a burnt pot. We entered a training room with laptops lined up neatly. People sat quietly, some looking nervous, some looking bored. Everyone looked like they belonged. I took a seat, hands folded, breathing slow. My phone buzzed once. A text from Linda. Proud of you. Don't shrink. I stared at it for a second until my eyes blurred. Then I locked my phone and looked forward. The trainer started talking about company culture, about professionalism, about attendance. The words should have scared me. Instead, they sounded like structure, like something I could build around. In my old life, everything had been reactive. Panic, then patchwork. Now there was a schedule, a badge, a desk that wasn't a cubicle, a future that wasn't just make it to Friday. At lunch break, I stepped outside and called Renee. She answered on the second ring, my baby babbling in the background. Hi, she said softly. How's she doing? I asked, voice tight with love and guilt. She's good, Renee replied. She keeps trying to steal my spoon. It is Sev. I smiled, the kind of smile that comes from relief and pain at the same time. Tell her I'll be home soon. Renee paused. Maya, she said. Careful. Are you okay? I looked at the building in front of me, tall and steady. I thought about Keith's conference room. I thought about the laundromat. I thought about the daycare notice. I thought about the way Linda and Renee didn't ask if they should help, they just moved. I'm okay, I said, and for once it wasn't a lie. I'm happy. Oh, wait. Renee's voice warmed. Good. You earned that. Good. I have, good, you earned that. After I hung up, I stood there a moment, feeling the cold air fill my lungs. I wasn't rich. I wasn't safe forever. Bills still existed. Daycare still existed. Fear still existed. But I had a job that matched what I studied for. I had a child waiting for me. And I had two women who refused to let me fall when the world tried. I walked back inside with my shoulders straight. I didn't know what the next hard thing would be. I only knew I wasn't facing it alone. If this chapter hit you, please watch to the end. Hit like, share it with someone who needs hope today, and drop a comment telling me, have you ever had a moment where everything almost fell apart right before it got better? I read every comment. Your stories help this channel grow, one connection at a time.